Welcome back to the channel. Before we start today's story, tell me in the comments where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see where the bravest viewers come from. My name is Miles. I drive a 2016 red tractor with a refrigerated trunk interstate route through West Texas, generally in the section between El Paso and Van Horn along I-10. It's a stretch of road that seems to never end. 2 lanes, a wide shoulder, desert on both sides, and a wind that hits the rearview mirror as if it were blowing straight from space. It was a Thursday shortly after 17 a.m., had been coming for hours with the autopilot at 62 map, alternating lukewarm coffee and hot water from the thermos. The radio on Canal 19 had been dead for almost an hour. No conversation, no alert, nothing. That was when I saw in the distance a yellowish glow, jumping in the darkness, as if someone were waving a flashlight. I got closer and saw orange cones in a zigzag pattern occupying the right lane and part of the left forcing you to slow down. Next to it, a portable sign blinked checkpoint, and further down, an improvised sign with reflective tappy said dot stop. There was also a pickup truck with a slowly flashing amber light. I was relieved. I thought it was some routine wait or documentation check. I disarmed the cruise. I turned on the hazard lights and reduced it to 3rd stage of engine braking. At 200 meters, I noticed something that made me scratch the back of my neck. The cones were perfectly clean, no dust, and the refraction pattern looked like too new to that desert. Another thing, the dot stop sign had the hyphen crooked and the coat of arms glued with vinyl misaligned. Not everyone notices this, but years on the road teach you to see what doesn't match. The white pickup was with magnetic stickers glued to the door. I've seen a lot of contractors use them, but the ones from official agencies are usually not magnetic, but rather painted or wrapped. I got closer. I saw a guy, yellow reflective vest, white helmet, whistling and signaling for me to get into a detour made with cones directing my trunk to a strip of gravel next to the asphalt. It was then that the radio hissed, an ugly hiss cutting through everything. I tried to call out, "Breaker 9, anyone at 10? Silence, just static, as if someone were injecting noise. No channel. I lightly turned on my high beam. The guy in the vest raised his hand, indicating for me stopped completely before a black canvas stretched out on the ground. A tarp in a supposed inspection? That didn't make sense. A black tarp in the dark on top of gravel holds nothing. Unless it's hiding something. The wind turned, bringing a smell of burnt oil. I quickly glanced in the mirrors. Nothing behind me for almost half a mile. Up ahead, just the pickup and the agent. My hands sweated, no steering wheel. I decided to buy time. I opened the window. "What's the reason for the checkpoint, boss?" I asked. He pointed to a badge on his chest, but the plastic shone, and I couldn't see anything. Weight and documentation. Pull over to the tarp driver. Turn off the headlights. Turn off headlights. They don't even ask for that at the weighbridge. I kept the rotation and left the truck rolling first, almost stopping, arriving a few meters from the canvas. That's when the headlight caught a metallic reflection underneath. Small points like hedgehogs, cow rubs. If I advanced, I would blow off the horse's 4 front legs. My stomach dropped. Without looking at the guy, I pushed the high beam switch twice, as if needing to test. In that brightness, I saw 2 shadows coming out from behind the pickup, each carrying something long, maybe Barcano. A 3rd shadow emerged from the darkness of the shoulder close to my trunk. They expected me to black out, step onto the canvas, and stay fixed assets. Then without tires, without radio, and without light, I would be just another big body standing in nothing. I breathed through my nose cold. Accelerate over the hedgehogs. Suicide. Back up. I could, but if they were behind me too. I looked in the left mirror on the shoulder. 2 things long, lined up, covered with blankets. If there were more Calrips, the stern would be a double trap. The guy in the vest blew his whistle in the air. 3 blows short, 1 long. A signal was agreed upon. One of the shadows ran to turn off my headlight with my hand. I felt my blood boil. I threw the steering wheel on the left, rising half in the opposite lane, and I turned on the pneumatic horn on the stem. At the same time, I pressed the trailer brake on the lever, and I let go the horse's bridle, making the rear toe sweep lightly. The cones flew. The guy in the vest jumped back, cursing. A pickup accelerated to close me, but I had already lined up in the free lane. I stepped on, The turbo whistled and the truck lumbered along at 30, 40, 50 mph. In the mirror, I saw the pickup eat the lane and stick to my bumper. A blue flashing light appeared out of nowhere. No, a cheap LED bar flashing blue and amber. False. They pulled up on my right side. The hooded passenger held up what looked like able thrower of those who play rope with hook-toe brake and make you slow down. I had already seen a video of this in a truck driver group. Something like cargo theft. If it engages, it forces you to stop. I threw the truck half a meter to their side. Not enough to hit, just to threaten. The hood hesitated. The driver backed away a little and tried to close again. I needed distance. I looked ahead, the green plate. The exit sign said rest area 1 mile. This was my chance. I held the steering wheel firmly. I went down 2 gears, and I stretched the spin top hard on the way up. The engine rumbled, vibrating the seat to the bone. The pickup insisted, now trying lock my left side. I leaned the wheel against the double lane, biting the paint, and I turned on the wiper dry just to wake my eyes. A stupid trick, but it works. My arms were shaking. I could feel the smell of my own sweat. The entrance of the area came up. I did what no instructor would recommend. I entered without reducing it enough, holding on to the engine brake and just enough on the pedal to keep from tipping over. The trunk rattled. I felt the springs scream. The pickup almost went straight on, skidded on the gravel, and lost a few meters. In the pocket of the rest area, there was 3 trucks sleeping, all in the dark. I threw the truck to within of the row. I turned off my headlights for a second and I called again, switching modes. I wanted to confuse. I stopped with the cabin fitted between 2 sets so that nobody arrived on my right side without hitting first. I pulled the parking brake. I took the cell phone from the holder and dialed 911. Emergency. What is your location? Rest area on eastbound I-10, 1 mile before exit 1140. There's a white pickup truck pretending to be a checkpoint. There are cows in the lane. They tried to cut me off. There are at least 3 guys. As I spoke, the pickup entered the rest area slowly without a rotating beacon. He circled like a vulture. One of the trucks next to me turned on the headlight, perhaps awakened by the noise. Another began to honk in short bursts, warning sign of a trucker. The pickup hesitated. Then he backed out, turned around, and went away. I stood there motionless with the cell phone to my ear, listening to my own heart. 10 minutes. Then a police car appeared. Sheriff of the county. Further back, a car from Highway Patrol. I showed them the footage of the dash cam. You could see the cones, the crooked sign, the tarpaulin, the shadows. Pause and zoom. A piece of plate of the pickup, blurry, but legible enough to understand that the combination did not match the state. The police went to the point. They returned with 2 boxes full of metal hedgehogs, a roll of homemade reflective tape, and 1 shame portable, explained the silent radio. They said that in recent months there had been scattered reports of checkpoints phantasma in empty passages, but nothing so clear. I kept giving my testimony all the way to heaven to lighten. When I finished, I rested my head on the steering wheel for a few seconds. The vibration of the engine idling seemed a snoring Kate on my lap. I was exhausted but alive. Since that dawn, I changed my habits. When I see cones that are too clean or signs that are crooked, high beam gamut to check reflection. I never turn off the lights by order of a stranger. Never. I step over the tarpaulin on the shoulder. And when Channel 19 dies suddenly, I assume it is no coincidence. On the road sometimes, who wants to stop you does not use a weapon face to face. You say scenario. If I had turned off the headlights, stopped on the tarp, and trusted the crooked badge today, perhaps my tractor trailer would be locked in a shed, my trunk empty, and I wouldn't be here telling you. Story 2. I learned early on that the road teaches you in silence. 3 months ago, however, the road screamed. I left Allentown at dusk, carrying industrial compressors that needed to be in Dayton by dawn. The radio forecast promised clear skies, but the crosswind made the horse shiver slightly, as if the asphalt were breathing. I'd already had too much coffee, and when caffeine fails, you start hearing things that aren't there. Creaks that become footsteps, the creak of canvas that becomes whispers. Around 2 in the morning, the right lane opened up, and I was alone for miles. Then I noticed a light flashing in my lower side mirror, right next to the side of my trunk. It wasn't a reflection from my flashing light or a dashboard. It was a small, steady white dot in the blind spot. I blinked, changed lanes, and the light disappeared. I turned right and it reappeared. I thought of a hot tire, a spark, some poorly applied reflective tape. I pulled over to the wide shoulder of an escape hatch, turned off the engine, and got out with my headlamp on. Dawn bit at my face. It was dry, cold enough to cut my nose. On the passenger side, the sound of insects was an electric buzz. I shined the light on the side member and saw a black magnet the size of a bar of soap glued to the beam, with a micro white light flashing every 4 seconds. I'd heard it said before, if they stick a tracking device to your chassis, it's a receiving company marking your truck for a takeover. My stomach sank. I used a wrench to try to pry it free. The magnet seemed to be tearing pieces of the night itself. Pushing it sideways, it came loose, almost falling into the ditch. I threw it into the glove compartment, drenched in cold sweat, and returned to the cab. That's when I saw the headlight. A dark sedan with no front license plate pulled up about 30 meters behind, turning off its headlights in the same second. No turn signals, no interior lights, just the silhouette in the rear-view mirror. My first reaction was to start the engine and get back on the road, but I barely put it in gear. Another car appeared in the left mirror parallel, keeping my side stuck to the shoulder. My right hand was shaking so badly that I missed the gear slot twice. I put it in gear, pushed the beast forward, and as I picked up speed, the car next to me accelerated along, staying close. The one behind me turned on my high beams. I tried the silly trick, flashing the brakes to see if they'd back off. They also flashed the brakes in the same rhythm as if they were laughing. I tuned the radio to the late-night crowd channel, QFIP. Anyone on I-7 near milepost 217, 2 cars surrounding me. Might be a stealth attempt. A scratchy voice replied, "Right, mate, hold on, up ahead. Old Mill, rest stop on the right, blue light, don't enter, go straight through. The patrol is circling around there, but now it's gone. Slow down without stopping." I didn't want to slow down. I wanted to disappear like a stone in a lake, but the car on the left came so close it almost brushed my running board. The one behind stuck to my bumper like a suction cup. The road got darker for a stretch with no street lights. That's when they turned off the lights again. I was at the mercy of the high beams of my own panic. At 90 miles per hour, you feel the cab breathing. The air vibrates in the windows, the suspension blows, and in every shadow my head saw a non-existent streetlight, a sharp curve. I just kept repeating to myself, "Keep the lane, keep it, keep it." I saw the blue Old Mill sign looming on the right, its neon light dim. At the entrance, an old truck parked its red peeling cab. For a second, I thought it was a person. When I got closer, I saw it was just a scrap metal hulk. The cars forced me to reduce. The parallel truck barreled toward me, closing half a meter. The rear end slammed its nose into my bumper. I heard my own pulse in my ear, a rubber hammer pounding against my skull. I shifted down a gear with the care of a surgeon. The truck groaned and stalled. I needed a maneuver they don't expect. Out of nowhere, a third light appeared ahead, a blue and red strobe. Little boy dancing. My heart leaped. Police, I thought, but I was too small, too low. When he got closer, I realized a drone. A damn drone with a flashing light. It came diagonally from the right, almost level with my windshield, and zigzagged as if sizing me up. I could see the glow of the LED on the glass. For a dizzying moment, I thought it was some college project, a toy. Reality hit me as the drone rose, filmed the side of my trunk, and turned around, pointing at the sedan that was following close behind. They were marking the truck in real time. That's when I decided to use the weight in my favor. The front opened up a bit, the highway curved gently. I knew that to the left was a service range, narrow, covered in leaf litter and gravel. If you entered it with both wheels, I could knock the parallel bar off in a shower of gravel. It would be risky. It would be all or nothing. I looked once more at the high rear view mirror. No one but those two and the drone behind. I took a breath. I played half a meter from the front to the left, just enough to spit out rocks. The plaster flew. The parallel car lost stability for a second on gaining a hand's breath. It's the hand a driver waits for all day. I slammed the beast back onto the track with a jolt that made the cabin creak. The one behind, surprised, lost the slipstream and fell a few meters behind. I took advantage of the space and floored it. The engine revved up like an animal waking up. I couldn't see the drone anymore. The two cars tried to reconstruct the siege, but now I had distance. On the horizon, I saw a green sign weighing 1 mile. The radio crackled again. 217, come in to weigh in. The guys sometimes fall asleep, but there's a camera. At least there's light and fencing. The scale was closed, but the courtyard had yellow spotlights, cameras in the corners, and a half-open gate. I used my turn signal and entered as if it were my own home. I turned to the end of the courtyard, and I parked in reverse, gluing the chest to the concrete wall. 0 rear access. The cars didn't enter. They drove slowly along the highway, headlights low. The drone returned. I felt its metallic hum before I saw it, but remained at a distance like an insect afraid of light. I picked up my cell phone and dialed 911. My hands were still shaking. I tried to explain breathless about the magnetic tracker, the siege, the drone. The attendant urged me to remain calm, confirmed my location through the scales cameras, and said she would send a patrol car. I stood there, headlights on, prevented from sleeping, watching my own fear reflected in the glass. The cabin seemed smaller than ever. Every creak of the dashboard felt like a footstep on gravel, every breath of wind a breath from outside. It took a little over 15 minutes, enough time for my mind to conjure up endings worse than any reality. As the patrol car entered the yard, the blue lights exploded on the guardrail. 2 officers got out. One asked for my identification. The other went straight to the right side of my chassis, as if he already knew where to look. I handed over the magnet I'd taken out earlier. The officer weighed it in his hand, turned his back to the scales camera, and pointed his cell phone light at a barely visible corner. A micro hole. "Microphone," he said without raising his voice. "And a cellular mesh transmitter. It's not amateur." They explained with a calm that made me angry for a few seconds that this has become routine. They mark trucks in dark areas, coordinate by drone when the police are not around, and surround the driver until he enters a safe spot that is actually the takeover point. The closed scale, the parking lot, any yard will do as long as the truck stops in a way that allows rear access. "You did the right thing by sticking the back of the truck to the wall," said the shorter man. "No ramp, no door. They couldn't open it without attracting attention." As we talked, the 2 cars reappeared on the highway, now heading in opposite directions like dogs that had lost their scent. The patrol car ignored them with practiced indifference. I didn't. I mentally memorized the shapes, the shadows. I don't know why. The police stayed with me until dawn. When the gray light began to wash over the courtyard, the drone never returned. Brightness has this power to humble what hours before seemed invincible. Still, when I put the car in gear to leave, the steering wheel felt heavier than when I arrived. I passed through the scale gate as if crossing an invisible threshold. I delivered the shipment to Dayton on time. The customer signed for it didn't even look up from his clipboard. I smiled politely. I knew somebody heard me breathing through the cabin that night and that somebody had missed dinner because of me. 2 days later, I bought an extra convex mirror, a cheap RF detector, and a brighter flashlight. Now, every time I stop, I get off. I check the chassis with my palm, and I pass the light underneath until I'm blinded by so much white. People make fun of me in the yard. They say I'm dating my stringer. I'll leave. I prefer the nickname to the silence of an empty courtyard with drones buzzing like hornets. The road, after all, continues to teach, and I continue to listen. Story 3. I was already on my 14th coffee of the day when the road became deserted. A cold dawn, a crosswind pushing the truck, and the dashboard clock stubbornly stuck on the same number. I turned on the CB radio just for company. A hiss, nothing more. Until between 2 bursts of interference, a voice whispered, "Anyone listening? We need help at KM 213. Car overturned. There's blood." I pressed the PTT without thinking. KM 2113 of which highway? Static came. Then the same voice as if speaking from inside my cabin. "You? The truck with the bumper sticker. Please." I looked in the mirror. I don't have any stickers. I put the GPS in satellite mode and looked for KM 213. The dealership changed the mileage after the duplications. KM 213 did not exist in that section. Even so, something in me told me that 2E had already passed by there 1,000 times. I slowed down when I saw a secondary exit, old with old signs covered in dust. On the CB, the voice returned, panting. The sign fell. The old road leads to the bend. Run. I passed through the gate, which was always open. The asphalt changed texture as if I'd stepped into an old movie. The moon seemed still. 100 meters ahead, a crooked plate. 2013. No letters, just the number, scratched with a knife. I felt a chill run up the back of my neck. I turned on my hazard lights, pulled over to the narrow shoulder, and got out with my flashlight. The silence there, it wasn't the same of the rest of the highway. It was as if everything was waiting. When I illuminated the asphalt, I saw fresh braking marks, a trail of crushed glass, and further ahead, an old blue station wagon overturned in the ditch, wheels still spinning slowly as if the accident had happened. "Now, is anyone there?" I screamed, slipping down the slope. A groan answered. I walked over to the smashed window. A young man, his face covered in blood, was breathing shallowly. He clutched something to his chest, an old-fashioned flip-top phone that glowed like eyeing out of time. "Get my wife out." "The other door, please." I ran to the passenger side. The door was locked. I hit it with my knee, put my arm in, and pulled. The latch gave way, and the hit of the fuel smell turned my stomach. "Girl, can you hear me?" Another moan, this time coming from the CB radio inside my truck. The CB blew up in a high-pitched wheezing, and then I heard the same sentence word for word with my own breathing behind me as if someone was recording the scene in real time. "Girl, can you hear me?" I looked up at the top of the ravine and saw through my cabin window my silhouette reflected in the glass, but I was on the bank. From inside the station wagon came a crack. The woman whispered, "He's not seeing us, not on this side of time." At that moment, the flashlight flickered, and for a second I saw two versions of the road. One clean, the other covered in debris and sirens in the distance, like a mismatched reflection. I managed to unbuckle the passenger's seatbelt and pulled her head out. She grabbed my arm and stuffed a cold object into my pocket, at plaque with the number 2113 engraved. "Take it to them. They never get here." The smell of fuel was too strong. I needed to get them both out of there. I walked back to the driver's side and shone the flashlight in his face. It was the same man from the CB voice, but his chest was still. His hand was still clutching the old phone, which rang 3 short beeps just like my tracker. The CB blew up again. "Get out of there now." The order came with my voice. I dragged the woman to the shoulder. When I looked back, the station wagon was no longer in the ditch, just the ditch, clean and the asphalt bare of glass. My boots, however, were wet with blood. I ran to the booth and turned on the dealership radio. I called for a tow truck and ambulance, everything. At the toll booth further ahead, they made me give a statement. I showed them the 21 Marine sign. The employee turned pale and called the supervisor. They took me to the camera room. Nothing of my truck stopping on the shoulder. Nothing of an overturned station wagon. Only free lane. "Are you sure it was today?" they asked. I looked at the clock. There was 1 hour late. I put the tag in my pocket. That night on the CB, one last interference. "Thanks for trying. They're late here." Since then, whenever I pass that stretch, the GPS gives a 1 kilometer jump as if the road skipped a bit. And in my jacket pocket, the plate